Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Narissa Rahaman. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Executive Director of Equality Virginia, Equality Virginia Advocates, and Equality Virginia PAC. I'd like to start by thanking Kelley and the entire team at the Human Rights Campaign for their work in Virginia and their unwavering support for advancing LGBTQ rights in the Commonwealth. As of this week, we are 10 weeks away from Election Day, and I'd like to talk a little bit about what's at stake. Earlier this year, Virginia had the dubious distinction of being the first state to pass an anti-LGBTQ+ bill through one chamber of a state legislature. 12 anti-LGBTQ+ bills were introduced during the 2023 legislative session, the most ever introduced in the history of the Virginia General Assembly. And the only reason these bills did not make it to the governor's desk is because of the unwavering support of the pro-equality Senate, holding back the tide of anti-equality members in both chambers and anti-equality House leadership. Now, on November 7th, we have the opportunity to secure our rights and expand them by electing a pro-equality General Assembly. As you all know, the Youngkin administration has openly tried to roll back the rights of LGBTQ Virginians through several different avenues. And the General Assembly serves as a crucial check on executive overreach. For us to fight back, we have to have strong allies who will stand with us and accomplices prepared to fight for us. That's why we are so proud today to endorse a slate of candidates for the General Assembly who will do just that. When I look at the candidates we've chosen to endorse, some of whom stand behind me today, I can't help but see a future where our General Assembly is more reflective and representative of the new American majority and the people who call our Commonwealth home. For the first time, many Virginians will head to the polls and have the opportunity to vote for candidates who look like them, worship like them, and whose name sounds like their own. Together, we have an opportunity to welcome new members to our LGBTQ+ caucus, our Black caucus, and our AAPI caucus. Next week, we'll also be rolling out endorsements in important school board races which will have a big impact for LGBTQ youth, their parents, and our educators, given that the Youngkin administration is doubling down on forcing school boards to adopt its anti-trans guidance released earlier this summer. From now until Election Day, we will be hitting the ground running, ensuring that the pro-equality majorities we dream about become reality. We're excited to activate and engage voters in support of these endorsed candidates. So let's go knock on some doors, let's make phone calls, and let's get Virginians registered to vote. And let's have honest conversations with our friends, our families, and neighbors about the importance of voting our values this November. As we near an extremely consequential election for LGBTQ Virginians this fall, we must remember the continued lack of transparency from this administration on the basic dignities and rights of LGBTQ+ people. We must remember to elect pro-equality champions who will protect and strengthen our freedoms. We must show the country that Virginia is a welcoming and a hospitable place to live. And we have that chance as the eyes of the nation are on us this November. We must remember from past elections that when equality voters in Virginia turn out, we can accomplish great things for all our communities. When equality thrives in our Commonwealth, we all thrive. Let's commit to a better future together. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Kelley Robinson, President of the Human Rights Campaign.
All right. Woo, I got so excited I just threw my remarks on the ground. Can we hear it one more time for Narissa and Equality Virginia? Yes. Y'all, I don't know about you, but I am fired up for 2023 because all eyes are going to be on Virginia looking for us to show the world that when people stand up for LGBTQ+ families in our lives, we win, full stop and period. So I am so excited to be here. My name is Kelley Robinson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm proud to serve as president of the Human Rights Campaign. I'm so proud to be here in Virginia, standing alongside Equality Virginia, our elected leaders, and our candidates in the House, because we have some work to do, y'all, between now and November 7th, and we know that this is going to be a critical moment, an opportunity for us to stand up and fight for the freedoms of all Virginians and really to show where our nation is going towards liberty, freedom, and equality. So I want to say this. This year has been a challenging one For the first time ever, the Human Rights Campaign declared a state of emergency for LGBTQ plus Americans. You know, right now across the country, millions of LGBTQ plus Americans, we lack the freedom to access health care, the freedom to support our families and raise our kids without government interference. We lack the freedom to be ourselves at school and to learn the truth about our past, to understand our present and create a better future. More than 550 anti-LGBTQ plus bills have been introduced just this year, more than 220 of those bills targeting the transgender community, many targeting our trans kids. More than 80 anti-LGBTQ plus bills have now become law. Here in Virginia, anti-equality lawmakers tried to pass their own slate of hate, but they were stopped in their tracks by a pro-equality state Senate, y'all. So I gotta say, if and when we elect pro-equality candidates like the folks who are here with us today, we are gonna be able to hold a pro-equality majority in the state Senate and elect a pro-equality majority in the state House. Somebody better clap for that. If and when we elect these pro-equality candidates, we are going to be able to safeguard our rights. We are going to be able to stave off extremists, and we can show the rest of the country that when politicians attack our fundamental freedoms, when they attack our families, they lose. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. Experts are saying that extremists are going to spend more money than ever before attacking LGBTQ plus Americans just to win elections. They might try to outspend us. They may try to out-yell us. But one thing they will never have is the power of the people, because they are on our side. They are on the side of freedom. In fact, equality voters are one of the fastest growing constituencies in this country. We are powerful beyond measure. There are 1.5 million equality voters in Virginia alone. Across America, at least 62 million American voters prioritize LGBTQ plus rights when deciding who to vote for. And a vast majority also support abortion rights, gun safety, voting rights, and so much more. This state of emergency right now requires us to respond with a sense of urgency, and that's why we're here in Virginia today. Virginia is not only a bulwark against extremism, it's also a bellwether of victories to come. While the journey to equality may start here, we know that it's not going to end here. So thank you so much, Virginia. Thank you for getting out the vote. Thank you for protecting all of our lives and families. I don't know about you, but I'm urgent and ready to get free, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm so excited to hand the mic to Representative Josh Coleman.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, or still morning, actually. Good morning, everyone. My name is Delegate Joshua Cole, and I am the former representative from the Fredericksburg region and the future delegate from the Fredericksburg region. I don't have to tell you that we are currently in a LGBTQ state of emergency. We have seen all across the nation laws that have been introduced that discriminate against the LGBTQIA community, not just in red states, but all throughout the Commonwealth and all throughout the United States of America. We are watching these laws be introduced, and for the sake of our blue states, they are being blocked, as we see right here in Virginia, where we have a stronghold in the Senate where they're blocking pieces of legislation. We have seen legislation that would forcibly out students to their parents, even if the well-being of the child is at risk. Legislation that would force students to reveal their genitals to school staff. Legislation that would ban teacher allies from supporting students in the school when they need help the most. And even our governor, who has removed helpful and life-saving LGBTQIA information off the State Department of Health website. This election in Virginia is critical, and to protecting our LGBTQIA community, we need to win this November. And I stand here to let you know, we don't also need to win, but we are going to win. And as we stand here with my colleagues and friends, as we're fighting for the community, we need you to understand how important it is to show up this November. We also stand here at the bell tower at the base of the Capitol and right around the corner from the governor's office to let him know that we are not going to be silent. We are not going to be quiet, and we will mobilize, we will organize, and we will win. Now is the time to stand up for what's important. Maybe these legislation that's being introduced may not impact you personally, but each and every one of us standing here today, each and every person watching today knows someone who will be impacted when hate crimes and suicide amongst black trans people are on the rise, when students don't have allies in schools, when students find that home is no longer a safe space for them. Now is the time and the opportune time to elect a pro-equality General Assembly back here in Virginia, and it begins on November the 7th, and we are going to do it. So I'm excited. I believe that we can do this, and we need each and every person who's watching today, who finds out today how important this election is. Don't go to sleep. Show up on November the 7th and show up to vote, because now is the opportune time. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Liz. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the proud parent of 4 beautiful children, 3 of whom are part of the LGBTQ+ community, and a proud grandparent of 2 adorable grandbabies. I was born and raised in Northern Virginia, and I'm happy to still call it my home. My youngest child has just begun 8th grade. She's a talented artist who loves her Yorkshire Terrier, going to sleepaway camp, watching YouTube videos, and playing on her Nintendo Switch. And she happens to be transgender. She showed signs of gender nonconformity from the age of 2.5. I knew nothing about trans children at that time, but I followed my child's lead and educated myself. She socially transitioned at age 7 and has never wavered from her firm internal knowledge of who she is. My daughter is happy and healthy today because she has been loved, affirmed, and supported by her family, school, and community. I'm here today because the results of this year's election will have an enormous impact on my daughter, my older children, and myself, and every other Virginia family like ours. We don't have to guess what will happen if anti-LGBTQ politicians are elected in Virginia. We need only look at the many states which have passed a record number of anti-LGBTQ+ laws in recent months. I've become more and more terrified as I've watched each of those states become an unsafe, hostile place for the LGBTQ+ community, especially for trans and non-binary kids and their families. I'm terrified because I know that only a slim pro-equality majority in the Virginia Senate has prevented my state from becoming one of those dangerous places for kids like mine. All 12 of the anti-LGBTQ+ bills introduced by extremists in the Virginia legislature this year were killed because pro-equality lawmakers were there to defeat them. If extremist candidates win the majority this November, the next legislative session, we will not be so lucky. As this election approaches, I worry. Will my kids and I have to leave our beloved home and community and flee to a safer state? Or will we stay and try to fight against the anti-trans laws that will inevitably be passed if extremists gain control of the Virginia legislature, while my daughter spends her high school years being discriminated against? It is imperative that pro-equality candidates win this November, not only to protect the LGBTQ+ community, but also to advance progressive policies that will address climate change, gun violence, mental health care, and other important issues. Extremist candidates seem to think trans children are somehow a threat to society and have made it their highest priority to attack trans children by taking away their health care, their access to school facilities, their access to representation in books and curriculum, their rights to use names and pronouns that match their gender identity, their ability to safely be who they are, and ultimately to eradicate the entire trans community. Virginia deserves better. We need lawmakers who will stand up for our children, not tear them down. Lawmakers who will address real, pressing issues, not ones who want to roll back human rights. Our state motto is clear. Virginia is for lovers. There is no place for hate in our state. On behalf of my daughter, who just wants to continue to be her true, authentic self, and to feel safe in her school and community, please support pro-equality candidates and make it a priority to vote in this important election. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce Senator Adam Ebbin, who has been a steadfast and trailblazing leader in the General Assembly. His partnership, his leadership, and his visibility as the first openly gay legislator in Virginia have made the Commonwealth a demonstrably better place for all LGBTQ Virginians. I'd especially like to recognize his work, tireless work, to repeal our outdated constitutional ban on marriage equality as someone who recently married myself. Thank you, Senator Ebbin.
Good morning. I first want to thank Narissa Rahaman, the Executive Director of Equality Virginia, not only for that introduction, but for the work that she does every day waging the fight for equality here in Virginia. And also want to thank the Human Rights Campaign and the Presidency Human Rights Campaign, Kelley Robinson, for coming to Richmond and for HRC's leadership in the national fight for equality. I represent parts of Alexandria, Arlington, and Fairfax for the last 20 years, and I'm proud to have fought with so many others for LGBTQ rights and seen some important victories. We made Virginia the first state in the South to ban discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity with the Virginia Values Act. We outlawed the use of gay and trans panic defenses in courts. We outlawed so-called reparative therapy. We repealed the statutory ban on marriage equality in Virginia, but we're still waging the fight to finally remove it from our state constitution. And in a desire to protect all of Virginia's students, we required schools to implement evidence-based practices to protect trans public students. Unfortunately, in 2021, we lost the pro-equality majority in the House of Delegates, and Glenn Youngkin, no friend to LGBTQ Virginians, was elected. But for the last 2 years, the Senate Democrats have been the backstop, the flood wall, the brick wall, holding back a tidal wave of anti-LGBTQ laws. As you heard this year, 12 bills were introduced, extreme anti-LGBTQ bills were introduced in Virginia, the most in our history, and we defeated them all. But outside of Virginia, 75 anti-LGBTQ bills were signed into law across the country. And if we were to lose the state Senate and lose in our effort to take back the House, they would become law in Virginia. Our wannabe DeSantis governor would sign every one of them if he could. But this January, we got a perfect example of the power of state elections. Aaron Rouse, a former NFL player and defender of LGBTQ rights, won a hard-fought special election, strengthening our pro-equality Senate majority. With Aaron in the Senate, we defeated those 12 anti-LGBTQ bills, but all of that is on the line again in this fall's elections. We're all on the ballot. This year, we've got so much more to do. We need to do so much more to win. Then win. We need to send a message by electing a pro-equality majority in both the House and the Senate. Because Governor Youngkin, he's not sitting back. He's trying to do through executive action what he can't do through legislation. Youngkin, through no new legislative authority, changed the evidence-based policies for trans students, making them non-evidence-based policies, taking the ones that were already established. And now we're hearing that Governor Youngkin and his Attorney General are threatening legal action against individual school systems over this. But this is the truth about what's at stake in this year's elections in Virginia. But if there's any doubt those 12 anti-LGBTQ bills would have been blocked this year, they would have been law without the state Senate. So along with reproductive rights and the future of democracy in America, LGBTQ rights are very much on the ballot. Virginians must show in 2023, once again with their votes, that discrimination and bigotry are not welcome here in the Commonwealth. And there are a record eight LGBTQ candidates running this year for the General Assembly. And with the help of organizations like HRC and Equality Virginia, we will protect and expand our pro-equality majority in the Senate and take back the House of Delegates this November. Thank you. Now, I have the honor of introducing Hans Baumann, who is a Virginia parent. And let's remember when we talk about parents that parents of gay kids deserve to have their children protected in school and in law. So with that, Hans Baumann.
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Hans. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a native of Arlington, Virginia. My wife and I went to college here in Virginia, and we've raised 3 young adults here. Virginia is our home. The youngest of our 3 sons came out as a transgender teenager in his senior year of high school. He came out about 3 years ago when the laws and policies here in Virginia were mostly supportive, evidence-based, in line with the medical professional recommendations. Our son was supported during his transition, not just by his doctors and his friends and family, but also by his teachers, his local school district, and even his state government. However, over the past 3 years, we've seen the national trend of taking human and parental rights away from families with transgender children take hold here in Virginia. Dozens of laws targeting transgender youth and their families have been proposed by our legislature, with only being halted by a slim pro-equality majority in the Virginia Senate. The governor's Department of Education proposed draconian school policies that strip families and students of their basic human dignity. And though tens of thousands of Virginians sent in comments against these model policies, the governor proceeded to adopt them nonetheless. In just a few short years, Virginia, my home, has gone from a place that was moving towards supporting all people to a state on the verge of outlawing transgender people completely. We are a state and a country on the brink. Radical forces have made transgender identities the most dominant issue of this political cycle. But what seems to be lost in this debate is that we're just parents and families supporting and protecting our kids. Like every other kid in his class, like Liz's kids, my son is focused on hanging out with his friends, getting his driver's license, applying to college, and pretending that he doesn't hear me when it's time for dinner. He's not an ideology. He's not trying to agitate anyone with his gender. He's just a kid. A kid that some in this state and country have made into a scapegoat, casting the small minority of transgender youth in Virginia as an existential threat. Though Northern Virginia is a relatively progressive and supportive place, my son now looks to the future with unease, worrying about his identity and future in this new world that seeks to deny his existence. Now is the time for Virginians to stand up. With your vote, you can reverse this recent senseless trend and ensure Virginia remains a place that welcomes and supports all children, all adults, all identities. Vote for candidates that oppose extremist attempts to strip Virginia families and children of their rights. Vote for candidates that accept and celebrate all of us. Vote to make Virginia a place that allows all families, even ones that aren't quite like yours, to simply live and thrive. Vote to keep Virginia a place where my son and your children can live safely and dream. Thank you.
We are fired up here today, aren't we all? Going to win in November. Thank you again so much to Kelley and the Human Rights Campaign, Senator Ebbin, Joshua Cole, Liz, and Hans for sharing your stories. All speakers and anyone here will be available to media for questions after. Thank you all so much for coming out.